welcome out to Maverick Trading's Finviz Elite video. We're going to go through Finviz and teach you the ins and outs of the software. It's really a powerful software tool, and I hope this will be quite educational for you. So as we come into Finviz Elite, we're first on the home page, and I've kind of zoomed in here so we can see things up close and personal. On the home page, you'll see a chart here of the Dow and the NASDAQ and the S&P. This is an intraday chart showing you how we're moving so far today. Obviously, today we're down overall 1.3%, down 1, down 1.3, but you can see that we're bouncing back intraday. So there is a little buying that's happening. Here you can see advancers versus declining stocks. 12% of stocks are advancing, 82% are declining. So pretty widespread selling pressure today. Next, we have new highs versus new lows. Only 2% of stocks making a new high. 98% are not, is what that shows. How many stocks are above their 50-day moving average? Well, about 1 in every 4. 25% below or above, 75% of stocks are below the 50-day moving average. You can compare how many are above or below the 200-day and so forth. Next, we can come down here and you can see different things that are moving. There's top gainers, new highs, unusual volume, upgrades, earnings, all these different things that you might find useful. There are signal charts, trendline supports, different patterns. We'll talk about that when we get into the scans. Here we have the heat map, which we'll go to. Most of this that's on the home screen are on other tabs, which we'll get to. Down here at the bottom, you can see the futures, what's moving, how gold is doing, how crude oil is doing, natural gas, and so forth. You can see the Forex market. But like I said, the home screen kind of gives you a little snippet of most of what you can find elsewhere. So next, let's go into the news. Here we can find news articles and blogs and things of what's moving today. So if you wanted to say, well, why is the market rallying? Well, here you can see stocks pair losses after Waller's rate remarks. So they're suggesting that part of the reason that the markets are rebounding is because one of the Fed members suggested that they're not on a path to raise too aggressively, et cetera, et cetera. If we wanted to, we could click on that and come in and look at the details of that news event and so forth. What did he say? He said he supports 75 basis point. Right now, the market's debating, well, should we raise by 75? Is it going to be 100 basis point hike like the Bank of Canada did and so forth? And Waller saying, no, it's probably going to be 75. And the market's rebounded a bit on that news. So here you have news and blogs. Next, we go to the screener. Now, the screener will allow you to scan through for different things, fundamentals or technical. We'll just go to all. If I wanted to put in some fundamentals, well, I could say I want a stock that only trades at a forward PE under 20 or something. I want this stock to be optionable and shortable. I want it to have over 2 million shares traded per day. I want it to have maybe a hammer candlestick and so forth. And so as you put in different details, some of them technical, like the candlestick, some of them fundamental, like the PE ratio, well, it'll just narrow down the prospects. And now you've got 25 stocks that meet the criteria of what you put in right here. Now, if I wanted to, I could click on each one individually, or I can just hit this chart button. And if I do that, it'll pull up the charts of all 25 or 26 stocks here so that I can see them. Each one of these are going to have the hammer. Each one of these are going to trade under a 20 forward PE ratio. Whatever the criteria is, these have that. So let's say we wanted to zoom in here and look at this. Well, there's the hammer candle. What else do we want to see? Well, maybe we wanted to add something else. Let's say we want to make sure that they are above the 20-period moving average. Well, now we only have 5 stocks because you just put in another filter. So now we're down to 5, and let's see what Amgen looks like. Okay, we're on top of the short-term moving averages. We have a hammer. We've kind of been in a basing formation. There's the bottom of the range. There's the top of the range. We're right smack dab in the middle, and so forth. Then you can put in different scans and criteria. Maybe instead of a hammer, maybe we don't put in any fundamentals. Let's come over here to pattern, and here's where you can look for certain patterns. Let's say we want an ascending triangle, or we want the strong ascending triangle. So it has to have that criteria. Well, that has 0 candidates. Let's see if that'll. Okay, so there's the strong ascending triangle. I remove that it has to be above the 20, and there you can see the chart pattern. Why is it pulling it up as an ascending triangle? Well, you can see the top and you can see the rising lows. We could draw a trend line under the lows. We can see the top right there. PGR meets the criteria. If I wanted to look at the details on this, I can come down here and see, well, how does it, what's its PE ratio and what's its PEG and what's its, cash and dividends and all of this information. I can see what analysts feel about this company. I could come over here and come into my charts and look at it in a different chart. So if I want to type in PGR and I come in here and I can move this, I can zoom in and zoom out, right? I could change the time frames and such. But let's say we wanted to draw a trend line. Okay, well, we can drag in our trend lines. We can draw in our support and resistance lines. Let's kind of zoom in there. And let's snag just a horizontal line and let's just snap that into place, something like that. And you can see that ascending triangle. And we might be at the bottom of the range and so forth. So anyway, as you do scans, well, we could go to that next page of the charts. And in these charts, I mean, you can do all sorts of things. You can go to full screen. You can come out of that. You can add indicators. You can, change the settings. So if you wanted to have different overlays, I just hit this little button. I could have additional overlays, which are Bollinger Bands, moving averages, and so forth. I could add different indicators in here that I want. If I want to add MACD, RSI, whatever it might be, I can choose and select those, right? I can do all my drawing tools over here. If I want to make annotations, if I want to write something in here, let's say downtrend, whatever, but reversal candle of a hammer, whatever. And so I can put that in so that it saves that on the chart, And then if I wanted to remove that, of course, I can click and delete and remove all the things that I have on there. I can put in different horizontal and vertical lines and curvatures. The horizontal lines are kind of nice where you can just slap them into place. And you can say, well, there's resistance up there at that zone. So the charts are customizable. I like to zoom in a lot of times and get in here where it's really quite zoomed in. And I've got, maybe 4, 5, 6 months worth of data that I'm looking at. If I wanted to zoom out, I can just scroll and zoom out and kind of see where we're at in context, see where some support and resistance levels are and whatnot. We can click here and change different stock symbols, anything we want to do from this chart. It's pretty customizable and a great technique that way. So that's in the chart section. Next, if we go into the maps. Now the maps are really fun, where the first thing you'll look at is just a one-day heat map. What's rallying, what's selling off. And you can see anything in bright red is down 3% or more. And then it gets less and less red, right? And then you go to neutral, you're kind of in that black color. +1 is a light green. You get more bright green, you're +3. So only Costco out of all the stocks is kind of in that brighter green, right? Closer to 3%. There's quite a few that are in the bright red. Energy stocks are in the bright red, material stocks, some of the Meta, formerly known as Facebook, You can see there's quite a bit of red on the screen. Now that's a 1-day performance. I can say, well, let's look at what the 1 week looks like. And we can see Boeing's having a great week. We can see Qualcomm is having a great week. If I said, well, let's see what's happening year to date. Well, most of it red, but energy and healthcare outperforming. So I can change the time periods on this, and it will show me that time period so I can see what's good, what's bad, what's outperforming, underperforming. If I wanted to do scans based on fundamentals, I can do that. So if I want PE ratio, anything in green is a low price to earnings multiple. Low being is better than high, all things being equal, right? So financials, big money center banks have low PE ratios. Well, what has a high PE ratio? Well, the Amazons and the Teslas and some of those of the world have higher PE ratios. So bright red would be not as good. And if I wanted dividends, what pays a high dividend? Well, these energy stocks do, and so forth. I can do the heat map that way. I can come into the S&P 500 or all world. Those are kind of fun. So let's go back to just 1-day performance and let's go look at the world. And as far as the world is concerned, well, Taiwan Semi, this is a semiconductor company, is in the green, but not most everything else. Okay. Most everything else is red across the world. If I looked at different exchange traded funds, some of these volatility ones are in the green. Some of the inverse relationship ETFs are in the green. All of these inverse, they go up when the market goes down. They're having a good day because we're in a bearish market day. So you can see from the heat map, you can do different things. If you wanted to change this to bubbles, I don't love the bubbles as much, but if you wanted to look at it where it's bubbled and you can see the different size and such, you can do that. And you can change, what you're looking at. The bigger bubbles are larger market caps, smaller bubbles are smaller. Just like on the heat map, the bigger the box, larger the market cap, right? Google's a huge corporation. Apple is massive. Some of these others are little tiny boxes. Well, they're smaller companies, right? And not as impactful to the index. So that's the heat map. Next, we can go over to groups. Now, this will show you sectors. And you can see you can go to specific industries within energy or real estate or whatever you're looking at. From here, you can see 1 day, 1 week, 1 month performance. We can see healthcare is having a good month. Energy is having a very bad one. We can see 3 month. We can see year to date and so forth. Now, as I click, I can go to valuation and I can say, well, what PE ratios are low? Which ones are high? Well, it seems that real estate trades at a high price to earnings multiple, but energy, financials, and materials trade at low PE ratios. I can go into performance and see what's performing. Again, a lot of it shows this performance where you can see year to date that energy is doing really well, but you can see for the past month it's doing very poorly. You can customize, you can turn these into bar charts, you can look at them across the spectrum, and there's just different charts, different ways to view it. If we wanted to come into the charts, this is kind of a quick, easy way to see what all of them look like on a technical basis. Materials, deep downtrend. Communication services, consumer cyclicals, consumer defensive, energy. I mean, all of these trending below the 50-period moving averages. Financials and healthcare, industrials, real estate. You can see those trends and you can see how we've been in really extended downtrends across most of these sectors for most of the year. So that's a nice, easy way to kind of see those. And if you wanted to, again, you can go in and look at specific industries. So if we say, well, let's go look at the consumer cyclicals, there's different industries. There's apparel manufacturing, apparel retail, autos, auto manufacturers, auto parts, department stores. You can see all those industries and see, for a little bit more detail what's performing. Same thing in energy or something like that. It'll show, if we go into energy and the industries, now you've got oil and gas drilling, you got E&P, you got equipment, you got integrateds. That's the Exxons and Chevrons that do everything. Midstream and refining, these are the Valeros and the Tesoros and Marathon and so forth. Coal companies, uranium. So if you wanted to break it down by industry, that's a nice way to do it. So if you wanted to, not just what sector's performing, but what industry is performing. Because, take energy as an example. Well, an oil and gas drilling company is different than somebody that's doing the refining, which is different than a uranium company. There may not be a lot of correlation between a uranium stock and somebody that's in integrated oil and gas. And so one industry might be performing really well, the other might be lagging, might be in a downtrend, what have you. So inside of groups, you can do sector analysis, but you can also narrow it down to individual industries. Next, you can have a portfolio. We don't really use this, but if you wanted to have a portfolio, you could build your own of like a watch list of sorts, I suppose. That we don't use so much. Insider information. Here's the reality. Most of what happens in inside companies is going to be selling pressure. Now, there's a lot of reasons for someone to sell. If you're the founder of the business, you might be selling off stock a little bit at a time to kind of diversify. Because, look, it doesn't make sense to have all your eggs in one basket. This is where you make your money. You probably don't want to have all of your money in all of that stock and so on. That's boom or bust. So most of the time, you will see selling pressure. You will see insiders selling off a little bit. Now, a lot of those sales are pre-planned and they're just, they sell off a little bit over time, and that's natural. What isn't is buying. There's a lot of reasons to sell. I mean, somebody could be going through a divorce, so they have to sell some stock and, et cetera, et cetera. But there's only one reason that someone buys, because now they're taking their money, they're taking their cash, and they're turning that into stock of that company, of their own company. So they are increasing their risk. People don't really do that. I mean, I suppose somebody could do that just to try to show that they believe in it, but it's really not a huge market mover. People don't pay a lot of attention to insider buying, and they don't rush to buy because the insider's buying, unless it's a big name. If Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan came out with a big buy, that would move JP Morgan stock. But I'm just telling you, most of these people, they're not moving the stock. So why is Daniel Friedberg buying that? Well, it's always possible that they're trying to do something weird and trying to manipulate the stock, which would be illegal, by the way. So they shouldn't be doing that. But really, most of the time, it's because they believe in it. They think, hey, I want to buy some of this stock because I think there's value. Now, that doesn't guarantee success, but you can kind of see that sometimes, a 10% owner might be buying a large position, or a director might say, hey, I want to buy some. Now, it may not be impactful buying 3 shares or 19 shares. I'm not sure that's completely accurate, but anyway, if you see insider buying and it's significant, like Berkshire Hathaway, there's some buying. These Berkshire Hathaway positions, by the way, in Oxy, they get reported every day because right now Berkshire Hathaway owns over 10%. Once you own over 10% of a stock, every purchase you make gets reported immediately, and that's what it's showing here is Berkshire Hathaway just bought 1 million more shares. What did that be? I mean, they bought 2 million more shares and 1,065,000. I mean, they bought 5 million shares yesterday of the stock of Oxy, and they're probably buying more today with the stock down a little bit. So anyway, there's one reason to buy. There's a lot of reasons to sell. I don't put a lot of weight behind insider activity, but if you wanted to look at, top insider trades, top 10% owners and what they're buying, Berkshire Hathaway is very aggressively buying Occidental Petroleum, an energy company right now, and that's all reported here daily. Futures, let's get into that. So here we can see what's happening across the world. We can see what sugar and lumber and coffee are doing. We can look at this on a daily basis, weekly. We can see how they're doing monthly and so forth. And you can see the 1 day, canola and ethanol and soybean, they're doing good. Coffee, silver, lumber, palladium, they're doing poorly. So you can get a little glimpse into what is bouncing and what is selling off. You could do that across, again, different time periods. So if we just go to daily, we can see that. We can see their performance on a 1 day basis. Again, we can click to different time periods to see that and see what's doing well and what's doing poorly over, different time periods. We can go into the charts if we want. So we can say, what do these charts look like? Well, some things going down. Gold and silver have been in downtrends. Copper, all of these things trading lower, but feeder cattle is kind of in an uptrend and so forth. So if you're interested in futures, what markets are moving, that's added information. And again, you can look at the quotes, the performance, the charts, etc. Forex. Now, currencies have been moving the markets, and specifically Euro USD. US dollars have been ramping higher, and Euro USD has now traded to parity. What does that mean? That means $1 gets you €1, 1-to-1 rate of exchange, and that's significant. That's historic. This has not happened in 20 plus years. That's big time. So that was a psychological number. That was a psychological hurdle that the market kind of needed to get to and plunge below and so forth and kind of flush some things out. It should lead to a little bit more stabilization and less of this kind of cascading price action, because now we've hit that mark. But if you want to come into currencies, you can look at these across different time frames. You can look at their performance. You can see what's doing well and what's doing poorly. You can pull up the charts on all of these currencies. So there is a Forex section here. There's a crypto section. It's going to look very similar. What's doing what? Daily, weekly. You can see Bitcoin trading at 20,000. We could come into their performance, and it's going to be pretty ugly if you look at like quarterly performance, down 60, down 63, down 25. Year-to-date performance, pretty ugly, but they're having a bounce over the past day or so. We can look at those charts as well to see those trends. So very similar to the futures and the Forex. It's just another section specific to crypto. You can do back testing. Now, I do most of my back testing on Thinkorswim, but if you wanted to come in and build a back test, you can create one. You can come in and say, well, I want to see the S&P, or I want this stock, and I want to do a test from this date to that, and I want to put in my criteria, my parameters and so on, and exit when this happens, and then run the back test and see what the performance results are. So it's like any other back testing tool. It's looking in the rearview mirror. It's looking back in time and saying, if I had done this, what would have been the results? And those can be kind of fun. And then from here, the Elite button is just your personal info. So if we click on that, it's just basically you can update different things, cancel your subscription, whatever. Just kind of talks about what some of the things are. All right, so coming back to the home screen, again, from the home screen, you can get to a lot of those sections. You can get to the insider information, or some of the scans with the criteria of signals, or the news of the day. You can get back to a lot of those sections, but now you know how to click on each section and go to what you want to do your research on. Hope you've enjoyed this educational video on Finviz Elite on behalf of Maverick Trading. I'm Corey Halliday. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.